I never imagined the scandal that would unravel when I discovered Fredegund's shocking secret. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was thick with tension. My heart raced as I stumbled upon that hidden box in Fredegund's attic. Dust danced in the sunlight, giving everything a ghostly glow. I felt a chill run down my spine. I hesitated, my trembling hands hovering above the lid. What could possibly be inside? Fredegund, my closest friend, always had an air of mystery around her. She was the kind of person who could light up a room with just a smile, but there were shadows behind her eyes. Secrets, I thought. Everyone has them, but Fredegund? Hers felt darker. I had known her for years, shared laughter and tears, yet here I was, feeling like I stood on the edge of a cliff, peering into an abyss. As I pried the box open, my breath caught in my throat. An array of old photographs tumbled out, faces I didn't recognize staring back at me with haunting eyes. The scent of faded paper filled the air, mingling with an unsettling feeling in my gut. I picked up one photo. It was a picture of Fredegund with a man I had never seen before. His eyes burned with intensity, almost too bright for this world. Something about him felt ominous. Each photo peeled back layers of her life I never knew existed. Then there was a letter. A crisp, yellowed page with Fredegund's name written in a delicate script. The moment I read the first line, my world tilted. A confession tumbled from the page of love, betrayal, and a secret that could dismantle everything. My heart pounded in my chest. I could feel the weight of the words, each one wrapping around my throat like a noose. Who was this man? Why hadn't she ever mentioned him? As I absorbed the chaos before me, a noise echoed through the empty house, a soft but distinct whisper. I turned sharply, the photo slipping from my fingers. A figure stood in the shadowed doorway. Fredegund's silhouette melted into view. Her eyes widened, a storm of fear and betrayal swirling within them. "What have you done?" she demanded, her voice a thin edge of panic. I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to explain, to tell her I hadn't meant to pry, but the truth danced on the tip of my tongue and all I could do was stare. In that moment, everything changed. I could see it reflected in her eyes, the realization that all our years of friendship hung by a single thread. That I wanted to scream, to run, to demand answers, but I stood frozen, my heart racing against a ticking clock. What else lay hidden between us? What would she reveal if I pressed her? Before I could respond, she took a step back, the shadows swallowing her whole again. The door slammed shut, leaving me staring at the empty space where she had been. All I could think was, what now? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The stillness of the house became deafening in Fredegund's absence, each breath I took echoing against walls that felt more like a prison than a home. I stood there, heart thudding in my chest, the air thick with betrayal and confusion. What had just happened? Her eyes, wide and rimmed with anguish, haunted me. I had crossed a line, one I hadn't even realized existed until I had fallen so far into its grasp. I rushed to the door, my hands trembling as I pulled it open. The weight of what I had discovered threatened to crush me. I stepped outside, the chill of the evening air biting at my skin, still trying to catch my breath. I glanced toward the empty street, toward the dark corners that had once felt familiar but were now cloaked in secrets. A sudden wave of guilt washed over me. Had I invaded her privacy? Was my desire for the truth worth destroying our friendship? Each step I took felt heavier, like sandbags weighing me down as the enormity of the situation pressed in around me. I couldn't let my heart speak for me. The truth about Fredegund's past lay like a landminion. Wrong move could obliterate everything. As I walked down the street, the neighborhood cloaked in dusk, my mind spun with questions. I didn't know where to go, who to turn to. The world around me twisted and blurred, each person passing by a reminder of how alone I felt. It dawned on me that I hadn't just discovered Fredegund's secret, I had uncovered my own vulnerability in the face of her betrayal. I found myself at the small cafe we used to frequent, its warm light spilling through the windows in a welcoming glow. It had always felt like home, a place where laughter echoed and stories flowed freely. Now, it was just another reminder of what once was. I stepped inside, seeking solace in the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods, but the atmosphere felt heavy with unspoken words. As I placed my order, I caught sight of an elderly woman sitting alone in the corner. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured sugar into her cup, eyes clouded with memories. Something about her presence tugged at my heart. I couldn't help but notice how deeply she seemed to sip her coffee, as if each drop contained a life lesson waiting to be unraveled. I grabbed my drink and moved to a nearby table, desperate to drown my thoughts in caffeine. But my eyes kept drifting back to the woman. At one point, she caught my gaze and smiled softly. It was a smile filled with understanding, as if she could see the storm raging within me. Drawing strength from that momentary connection, I found enough courage to walk over. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, feeling a strange sense of kinship. "Not at all," she replied, her voice warm and inviting. "It's always nice to have company." Her presence felt grounding. We spoke for only a few minutes, but as she relayed tales of her youth of love, loss, and the resilience of the heart, my heart began to lift, if only slightly. Here was a stranger willing to share her story, and with each word, I felt the burdens I carried begin to shift, if only for a moment, but just then, a wave of obligation washed over me. I had to confront Fredegund. I needed to understand what drove her to hide such a significant piece of her life from me. I stood up abruptly, the coffee cup nearly slipping from my grasp as my thoughts surged back to my own turmoil. "I'm sorry, I have to go," the woman nodded, her expression understanding yet knowing. "Take care of yourself, dear. Sometimes, we have to confront darkness to find our light." That I left the cafe and headed back, my heart a mixture of hope and dread. What if Fredegund wouldn't speak to me? What if the trust we had built over the years was completely shattered? As I approached her home, my breath caught once more. The faint glow of a light shone through the window. Maybe she was waiting, perhaps ready to talk, but before I could knock, I heard voices inside. Fredegund's voice, strained and hurried, mingled with that of a man's deep and commanding. The words were muffled, but their intensity pierced through the glass. "Fredegund, you cannot hide from this. Not anymore." The man's voice boomed, heavy with a threat that sent shivers down my spine. My heart raced as I pressed my ear against the door. What secret had I stumbled upon? Just as I contemplated rushing in, Fredegund's voice broke through, fearful yet defiant. "I'll tell you nothing. You don't own me." Just then, the door rattled slightly, and I quickly stepped back, adrenaline flooding my veins. The truth was at my fingertips, yet I was too late. The man's frustration echoed through the porch. "You think you can walk away from this? I know more than you think. You can't hide, Fredegund." I stepped back into the shadows, my heart pounding. I hadn't just stumbled upon Fredegund's secret, I had walked into a battle far more dangerous than I ever anticipated. The whispers of the past were ready to engulf us both, and I stood at the precipice, unsure of the choices I would soon have to make. This was not just about uncovering her history, it was about survival, loyalty, and the bonds that might yet break us. Should I intervene? Or should I remain hidden, waiting for the fallout to unfold? The weight of my indecision pressed down on me heavily, leaving me breathless and uncertain. The shadows lengthened around me as I stood frozen, grappling with the realization that I was a witness to something dark and dangerous. The muffled confrontation continued, each word barely grasped but filled with meaning that sent my pulse racing. A part of me wanted to burst through that door, to shield Fredegund from whatever menace lurked within, but another part of me, a voice whispering insistently, warned me about the risks of revealing myself amidst this storm. As the man's voice rose, it seemed to crack through the wall of silence I had so desperately hoped to maintain. I stumbled backward, feeling the rough edge of the porch scrape against my skin, grounding me in the moment. The possibility of losing Fredegund to whatever this man represented felt not only terrifying but all too real. "Leave me alone!" Fredegund shouted suddenly, her voice laced with a passion that ignited a flicker of hope in my chest. "I have no debt to pay. You have no hold on my life." My fingers tightened on the railings as I listened, heart pounding. The man's reply was a low rumble, laced with menace. "You think you can walk away from the consequences? You will face them, one way or another. I will find you." With that, the door swung open, and the man stepped out, a dark figure dissolving into the twilight. I pressed myself closer against the wall, nearly holding my breath. The night felt heavier, the air thick with his threat still lingering in the atmosphere. After a few moments of silence, waves of uncertainty washed over me. I hadn't expected to hear that voice again. I hesitated, but instinct pulled me back to the door. I needed to know Fredegund was safe. With trembling hands, I lifted my fingers to knock, the sound reverberating like a gunshot in the silence. The door creaked open, and Fredegund stood before me, her cheeks flushed and eyes wide, a mixture of surprise and something else, fear. Relief? "What are you doing here?" she whispered urgently, glancing back into the house. "I heard I didn't know it was that serious," I stammered, searching her eyes for an answer, a hint of understanding. "Who was that man?" Fredegund's gaze flickered, a distressing shadow moving across her features like an eclipse. "You shouldn't have come," she murmured, stepping back, almost as if to protect herself from the gravity of my presence. "It's dangerous, dangerous." I echoed, a sense of urgency overtaking my hesitation. "Fredegund, you need to let me in. You can't handle this alone." Her breath came in short gasps as she held my stare, a silent battle waging behind her eyes. "You don't understand what this is. I need to protect you, but I want to stand by you," I insisted, stepping through the threshold, breaking the boundary that had formed between us. "You're my friend, and friends don't let each other fight alone." "Who is he? What does he want?" I watched as her composure cracked like glass. "This is about my past, things I thought were behind me. It's all surfacing again, and I can't let you get caught up in it." Her voice trembled on that last word, a hint of the vulnerability she had shielded beneath layers of bravery. My heart ached for her, for the storm she had borne alone. "You don't have to protect me, Fredegund. Just share the burden." "I want to help," tears pooled in her eyes, reflecting both gratitude and pain. "This isn't what you signed up for. I never meant to involve you in any of this." Suddenly, the darkness outside felt more menacing. It was as if the very air thickened with unspoken truths, demanding to be acknowledged. Just then, Fredegund flinched, her breath hitching in fear. "We need to go." "You should leave now." I stepped closer, rooted in determination. "I'm not leaving you. Not now, not ever." The conviction bore out of me like a promise carved in stone. Before Fredegund could reply, the distant sound of tires screeching caught our attention. A car came to a halt nearby, the headlights illuminating the space outside her home. My heart sank as I realized the reality of our situation. Danger was closing in all around us, and confronting it together was the only way to face the shadows lurking at our doorstep. But just as I opened my mouth to reassure her, a figure emerged from the vehicle, silhouetted against the harsh glow. My breath left me in a rush as recognition flooded in. It was someone I knew. A face that should not have been here, a figure from my past entwined with Fredegund's secrets, an unwelcome connection that sent a tremor through every fiber of my being. "Get inside," Fredegund hissed, panic overtaking her features. That I reached out, gripping her arm as we both stepped back into the house. The door clicked shut behind us, but I could hardly breathe as the weight of this impending revelation settled upon us. We had unwittingly stepped into a web spun from the very shadows we were trying to escape, and with every heartbeat, I realized we might be ensnared in far more than just personal demons. The man was coming. The secrets were about to unravel, and time was slipping away. The air inside the house was stifling, thick with unspoken words and a palpable dread that tightened around both of us like a noose. I could feel Fredegund's anxiety bleeding into my own. She was trembling slightly, and I wanted nothing more than to offer her comfort, to break that tension, yet I was just as shaken by the revelation of that figure outside, a specter from my past surfacing to threaten our fragile reality. Do you know him? Fredegund whispered, her voice barely louder than a breath, as if speaking too loudly would summon worse horrors. The urgency etched in her features cut deeper than any knife. That I do, I replied, my voice heavy. Hesha's someone I thought I had left behind. How is he connected to your past? Fredegund's eyes darted toward the grim silhouettes of the trees outside, the darkened shapes whispering with menace as the car's headlights illuminated the area around us, casting long shadows within the room. He's part of my life I tried to bury, but he won't let me forget, she said, her hands trembling as they gripped the edge of the table. It pierced through me, the fragility in her tone, the pain of memories resurfacing like echoes of a distant storm. I wanted to shake that fear from her, to tell her that we would face whatever was coming together. In that moment, I understood the strength of solidarity. There was power in vulnerability. Fredegund, you're not alone in this. Whatever he wants from you, we can face it together. But you have to trust me. Tell me everything, I urged, stepping closer, closing the distance between us as an act of defiance against the shadows gathering outside, but she shook her head slightly, a flicker of despair crossing her features. It's not that simple. He was there when everything went wrong. He knows too much, then we need to find a way to turn the tide. There's got to be something we can do, I insisted, my heart hammering with the weight of her emotions. The distant sound of footsteps reaching the porch sent a wave of panic crashing over me. Fredegund looked at me, her face igniting with a mix of fear and determination. We need to hide until he goes away. You have to trust me. Please. Panic surged beneath my skin, the fear of being caught creeping into my thoughts. I nodded as she led me through the dim corridors of the house, heart pounding in rhythm with our hurried breaths. A small pantry stood at the back, its door shadowed but inviting. As we slipped inside, the darkness wrapped around us like a cloak, blocking out the outside world, muffling the sounds of approaching danger. I leaned against the cool, wood-paneled wall, taking in the scent of dust and something sweetly familiar, vanilla, perhaps from a candle lit to ward off the night. Fredegund was close, I could sense her presence in the dim light, but I couldn't see her face. The closeness felt fragile, as if the act of breathing too deeply might shatter the illusion of safety we had briefly found. Fredegund, I whispered cautiously, what exactly does he want from you? She hesitated, a shudder passing through her. He wants me to pay back a debt that wasn't mine to begin with, she breathed, her words emerging as a shaky confession. It's tied to my father, a deal he made long before I was even born. I thought it was over, but it's come back, and he wants me to fulfill it. My heart sank with her words, realizing the depths of the darkness she had been hiding from me. What kind of deal? What does he want you to do? Something terrible, she murmured, her voice trembling, haunted by the weight of her past. In this moment of stillness, all the pieces began to slot into place. Every smile she had given me, every reason she had pushed me away, came rushing back as though the universe had finally revealed its cruel design. The realization struck me with staggering clarity, she was tethered to a legacy of darkness that didn't belong to her. It would take everything to disentangle her from the shackles of her past, and yet we had to act swiftly. Suddenly, the sound of tapping pulled us from the suffocating silence, and my blood turned icy. Someone was at the window, the shadows playing tricks on my vision as I squinted. There he was, a face I would never forget, the man we had seen earlier, now less a figment of memory and more a looming threat. Fredegund, he called softly, mocking, the sinister amusement in his tone reverberating against the walls like a ghostly echo. I know you're in there. The world outside felt like it was folding in on itself, and all I wanted to do was shield Fredegund from the brutality of it, but I felt helpless, trapped in the circumstances of a life I had barely known. Whatever happens, we face it together, I whispered fiercely, gripping her hand as the darkness gathered thicker. But even as I said it, dread settled deep in my bones. What if this wasn't just about Fredegund anymore? What if his words reached beyond her and into my own past I had thought safely buried, interwoven with her own? The frantic beating of my heart echoed in my ears as the consequences of our entangled lives began to unravel rapidly across an unseen horizon, threatening to pull us both under. The echoes of his voice were already wrapping around my soul. The silence that followed his mocking call was suffocating, wrapping around us tighter than the walls of the pantry. I could feel Fredegund's fingers trembling in mine, a frantic rhythm that matched the chaotic drumming of my heart. The shadows outside the window coiled like serpents, watching, waiting. The weight of our predicament pressed down on me, and for a moment, I struggled to suppress the growing panic, each breath shallow and fervent. "Don't answer him," I whispered urgently. "We can't let him know we're here." Fredegund nodded, but there was a flicker of fear in her wide eyes, a glimmer of recognition that cut deeper than I could comprehend. She had to face the sure past. This man who loomed outside was not just a threat but a cornerstone of her reality. I felt the tremors of her anxiety pulse through my arm, a painful reminder that our fates were now locked together in this harrowing moment. "Fredegund," I began, my thoughts racing, "we need to think clearly. If we can't hide, maybe we can find a way to confront him, to turn this on its head." The urgency of my own words struck a chord, but doubt laced my confidence. What if I was only leading us deeper into danger? Confront him. She shook her head fiercely, a note of desperation coloring her voice. "He's dangerous. You don't understand what he's capable of." "I can't let you." The harsh thump of a fist against the door abruptly cut her off. My breath caught in my throat as dread flooded my senses. "Fredegund." The voice was insistent now, a serpent hissing promises cloaked in malice. "I'm only here to talk. You don't have to hide. Can't you see what he is? This is your chance to escape him, to free yourself from whatever twisted bargain your father made," I urged softly, squeezing her hand as if my grip alone could fortify her resolve, but her gaze fell, shadows crossing her features. "You don't know him. He doesn't forgive, and he won't let me go. He'll destroy everything." The tremor in her voice wove through the darkness, binding us together in a shared fear that threatened to pull me under. With a sudden clarity, I understood that this wasn't just a fight for her. It was a fight for both of us, a confrontation with the ghosts that bound us. I took a breath, feeling a swell of courage rise within me, a flicker of defiance that pushed back against the panic. "Then let's make him see you're stronger than he believes," I declared, my voice louder now, a battle cry rising from deep in my chest. The pounding stopped. A peculiar silence descended, and I felt Fredegund's eyes bore into me, searching for something I had yet to find within myself. "You really think I can face him?" she asked, her voice a whisper laced with doubt. "That I believe in you," I said firmly. "You've been fighting all your life. Maybe this time, you can do it for both of us." The words hung between us, an unspoken promise that shimmered with hope even amidst the shadows. Before she could reply, the door swung open, revealing the figure once more. The man's features were obscured by the thickening gloom, but I could sense his grin, a gleaming smile that felt impossibly cold. "You think you're brave?" he taunted, stepping into the dim light. "You have no idea what's at stake here." He barely glanced at me, as if I were an insignificant fly buzzing around his head. His gaze fixated on Fredegund, dark and predatory, and I could feel her cower under the weight of his focus. "You can't escape your destiny, my dear Fredegund. That dead is collectiblite always will be." I stepped forward instinctively, every instinct screaming at me to protect her. "Don't you dare threaten her!" I shouted, my voice steady in a show of defiance I barely felt. His laughter chilled the air. "Oh, how noble!" He turned back to Fredegund, his tone shifting from menacing to conversational. "You may think you found support, but remember, the things we hide don't vanish, they fester. You have secrets that could ruin not just you, but everyone you care for." Breath caught in my throat as realization struck. My own hidden truths twisted with the weight of her past, and suddenly the air felt suffocating. Could my own history intertwine with hers, intertwine with this debt of darkness? My stomach churned at the thought, Fredegund's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. "I'm not afraid of you," she declared, surprising me with the strength of her conviction. "You may have a hold on my past, but I will not be your puppet any longer." The air crackled between us, a fragile thread woven through her bravery and my unwavering hope. But before the words could settle, it all shifted, darkening with revelation. The man leaned closer, his eyes glinting with a sinister anticipation. "Ah, sweet Fredegund, but there's something you don't know." The smile faded as if he had uncovered a hidden treasure. "Your father's promise had a second clause. One that absolutely involves the one you've grown attached to." As my heart plummeted, new shadows loomed over our fragile alliance. The piece of myself I thought I had buried deep surged forth, clamoring for acknowledgement. The past that I thought was my own began to bleed into our shared reality, and in that moment, clarity dimmed as fear resurrected itself from the depths of despair. Fredegund and I locked eyes, the truth hanging heavy in the air, a new threat unfurling before us. We were on the cusp of an unknown darkness that might consume us both. I had fought to protect her, but perhaps it was I who would plunge us into the depths of scandal. The future was now shrouded in uncertainty, and a chilling silence rang out as we stood together, caught in the web spun by our intertwined fates. The air was electric, woven with the unspoken truths that threatened to unravel everything. The figure before us, a master of manipulation, thrived on our despair. I could sense Fredegund's pulse racing, a visceral reaction to the implications of his words. My own heart drummed a frantic rhythm against the starkness of the pantry walls, each beat a soundbite of fear and dread. "What do you mean?" Fredegund's voice trembled, her bravado faltering. I could see the color drain from her face, her fortitude cracking under the weight of the man's insinuation. "What second clause?" He stepped back, arms crossed as he relished the moment, the shadow of a predator toying with its prey. "You'll want to hear this, my dear. Your father, in his desperate quest to save you from yourself, struck a bargain with forces far beyond our understanding. And in that bargain, your freedom came at a price. His abandonment, a wound so deep it will affect every life tethered to you." I stepped closer to Fredegund, desperate to shield her from his venomous words, but even I could sense the fragility of our situation. The tenuous threads of hope were unraveling fast, and the burst of adrenaline I felt now seemed dwarfed by the enormity of impending revelation. "Stop this!" I shouted, but my voice echoed uselessly in the thick tension. "Stop." "Oh no, I couldn't possibly," he continued with a smirk that dared us to face the reality he wielded like a weapon. "You see, my sweet, your father's mistake was underestimating how long the past can cast a shadow over the present. I hold the key to that promise, and the clock is ticking. You thought you could hide, but every secret has a way of surfacing, especially the ones entwined with love." The word felt foreign in this chilling context. I reached for Fredegund's trembling hands, our bond strengthening as her warmth seeped into my cold dread. "This man is trying to manipulate us. He thrives on fear, and he will say anything to break us apart." "Brave words, but naive," he countered, leaning closer. "Your past indelibly entwines with hers, perhaps it was fate after all." A sickening knot formed in my stomach, emotions swirling in a tempest of uncertainty. Something primal within me roared to protect Fredegund, but now I was faced with my own history, my own buried secrets. "What do you want?" I demanded, swiveling back to confront him. "This is about more than threats. What satisfaction do you gain from this?" He chuckled softly, a sound devoid of warmth. "Satisfaction? Ah, boy, it's not my satisfaction you should worry about. It's the reckoning that awaits you both." "Enough." Fredegund's voice cut through the darkness, fierce and resolute. "If you think you can manipulate me with your words, you're mistaken. I may not know the details of my father's sins, but this is my life to live. I refuse to be a pawn in anyone's game." "Too late for that, my girl," he sneered, his eyes flashing with cruel amusement. "Once the curtain rises, the show can't be stopped. You're already ensnared in this web." That I felt the walls closing in, a sense of despair clawing at my resolve. Time was slipping away, and with it, our options narrowed to unsettling possibilities. How do we break free? I whispered to Fredegund, desperation threading through my voice, but before she could respond, the state of our surroundings shifted drastically. The shadows lengthened, and from behind the man emerged a figure cloaked in memories of my own past, me mother, serene yet troubled, her face waning into the periphery of my reality. I stumbled back, disbelief rattling through my chest. No, I gasped. This can't be real. You died. The laughter erupted like a dark echo from the man, a perverse enjoyment glimmering in his eyes as my mother stood frozen in time. Oh, but the past has a way of following us, doesn't it? He gestured toward her spectral form. She carries the weight of her choices, just as you shall. Leave her out of this. I cried helplessly, pain and fury intertwining in a desperate plea. The man raised an eyebrow, his expression almost sympathetic. But she was the first bargain struck, wasn't she? Even now, she watches over you, bound by the same threads that entangle Fredegund. You have so much to learn about the price of love and loyalty. Fredegund's gaze met mine, confusion and terror swirling around us as I felt the earth shift beneath our feet. What does he mean? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know, I stammered, the walls of reality warping as every looming shadow felt all the more alive. But we need to escape this moment. But even as I spoke, the figure of my mother flickered, darkness wrapping her within its grasp, her eyes pleading without sound. No! I shouted, lunging instinctively forward to grasp at this vision of the past. Foolish boy, the man said, stepping back, malicious satisfaction glinting in his gaze. In trying to save someone else, will you lose yourself? The air around us thickened, swirling into chaos as reality teetered on the brink. The shadows of our intertwined fates loomed large, stretching out like darkened roads that forked into unknown futures. And with that, the secrets held fast grew louder, the toll of uncovering truths that could either save us or doom us ringing like a bell in the stillness. As we stood at the precipice of revelation, fear clutched my heart tighter than ever. What horrors waited if we delved deeper? A deafening silence wrapped around us. Moment stretched into eternity as we faced the stark cliff's edge of despair, where the past and present coalesced into one haunting truth, shattering everything we believed. The echoes of uncertainty curled around us, curling tighter with every breath as the figure of my mother flickered in and out, a tragic marionette caught in a game we had not chosen. I took a step back, recoiling from the specter of the past. The words of the man wound around my mind, squeezing tight like a vice grip. I felt a surge of anger rise with a frantic urgency, and for an instant, it felt like I could shatter the surreal wall closing in on us. But as I glanced to Fredegund, her eyes, wide with a mixture of dread and defiance, crystallized the stakes. The uncertainty of what lay behind the shadows weighed heavy on her shoulders. We can't let him control us, she whispered fiercely, determination igniting something deep inside her. There was a strength in her voice that pulled me back from the brink of despair. Each second of her conviction pierced the battering winds of chaos. In that moment, I realized that the unraveling of our circumstances was nowhere near complete. It was an entangled web strung tight against the promise of freedom. If there was a secret buried deep within our lives, we couldn't turn away from it any longer. What can we do? I asked, every ounce of resolve reflected in my posture. My heart raced, dancing between the fear of what would happen if we failed and the brittle hope that perhaps we didn't have to face this alone. First, we refuse to play by his rules, she said, fixing her gaze on the man as if daring him to take another step closer. There has to be some way to turn the tide. The man's face twisted into a smug grin, reveling in our desperation. Oh, sweetness, you truly underestimate the power of choice when entangled with fate. It's an exquisite trap, a maze from which you may never escape. In that moment, an intuitive understanding coursed through me. It was imperative we not only confront the shadows of our pasts but also each other. With the ties that bound us fragile and strained, I stepped closer, grabbing Fredegund's hands firmly in my own. I needed to reinforce the connection, reminding us both of the light we sought amidst encroaching darkness. Fredegund, whatever your father's choices, whatever my mother's legacy holds, this is ours to fight. We cannot allow their pasts to dictate our futures. We are stronger together. Her frightened expression flickered, a momentary glimmer of clarity passing between us. Just then, the flickering of my mother's image intensified. The chaos softened into a whisper as she leaned toward us, her ethereal gaze locking with mine, every ounce of maternal love brimming beneath the surface. Remember the stories, the truths buried in the heart. They may hold the key, she uttered softly, the air around us shimmering with warmth. In an instant, reality shifted again. The room around us evolved, walls melted into the warm hues of a familiar setting. I could see the glow from flickering candles, their light casting a comforting ambience that felt like home. Memories spilled forth like a wellspring, a time when laughter echoed without the weight of burden to stifle it. I felt a rush of longing for days when life was simple and love untainted. Fredegund and I stood together, hand in hand, sharing fleeting gazes filled with resolve. The stories? She echoed, a spark igniting in her voice, and for the first time, I could sense the fragile thread of hope knitting itself between us. My mother used to tell me of a sacrifice made for protection, I murmured, feeling the pieces of our stories align. What if it's a paterna repeated tale through generations? My mother created a barrier, and maybe your father did too. The power of their promises could still be undone if we reclaim their mistakes, but before I could elaborate further, a laugh, not the dark, sinister laughter of the man, weaved through the air, light and crystalline, echoing the spirit of childhood. Farther away, a figure emerged from the shadows, this one decidedly less ominous. My heart quaked as old man Cedric, the wise but whimsical keeper of our town's secrets, stepped into view, twinkling eyes fixed on us. Children, you've done exceedingly well to tread so far into the heart of shadows. His voice was enveloping, each word fraught with ancient wisdom. A tangled web indeed, but fear not, for your shared histories poised you well for what lies ahead. Cedric, I breathed, confused yet exhilarated. You know something? I do, dear boy, he said, with a knowing smile, holding out a weathered pouch. The past must be reckoned with, but forgiveness must be given not just to each other but to yourselves. Use this to uncover the forgotten. Fredegund and I exchanged a glance tinged with a mix of apprehension and renewed strength. What is it? She asked, curiosity edging out the fear clinging to her words. The old man chuckled softly, shaking his head. The remnants of time are fickle, my dear. Only when chased by truth do they reveal their treasures. And with a soft cough, he continued, but beware, the price might be heavier than the gift. And just then, the air shifted again, surrendering to an oppressive darkness as the man lurking at the edge of our encounter leaned in, his voice thick with malice. Ah, children, you tread dangerously close to revelations that could shatter everything you hold dear. In that harrowing instant, the shadows coalesced around us, a chilling cloud rising like an encroaching tide. You cannot escape your legacies. He hissed, and the oppressive weight of history bore down like an anchor, dragging us further into a deep abyss. My heart pounded in my chest as Fredegund tightened her grip, her resolve hardening. But directly behind the darkness, a singular light sparked, a small flicker of warmth that dared to defy the shadows. As we readied ourselves for the conflict to unfold, the realization hit with ferocity: the lies we had inherited from our families couldn't hold us captive. We were at the crossroads of choice, about to walk a path that could either bind us to our pasts or lead us toward an unforeseen future. And there, as treachery loomed, a shiver of fear rushed through me. An impending revelation, one I feared could change everything. What dark truths awaited us if we pushed forward? Would secrets burst like fragile bubbles, or would they crush us beneath their weight? Desperation mingled with a haunting question: could we truly brave the storm that raged in the hearts of those who came before us? Clutching onto hope, I held Fredegund tight, knowing one thing for certain: we had chosen to embrace the dark, and the consequences would soon unfold in ways we could never have imagined. The world spun like a top as the heaviness of the shadows threatened to snuff out the flickers of warmth we had gathered. Fredegund's grip was a steadying anchor, grounding me as I waded through the storm of confusion and dread. It was as if we stood unmoored at the edge of a vast precipice, our faith dangling like a delicate strand between certainty and despair. Do you feel that? She whispered, her voice shaking slightly. I understood the tremor as more than fear. It was anticipation, a palpable hope mingling with anxiety. We were on the brink of unearthing something monumental, and yet there was something amiss. The way the air thickened, the way the sky darkened at it was a harbinger of truths eager to unfold, but at what cost? With a resolute breath, I stepped toward Cedric, seeking the wisdom and clarity his age seemed to promise. "What do we do now?" I implored, needing reassurance in the chaos. "You said the past must be reckoned with," I continued, "but is it as simple as that?" Cedric's eyes sparkled with a blend of mischief and wisdom that cloaked his every word. "Retrace the steps, children. The past is not simply a set of memories, but a series of choices, a path lined with the bricks of our ancestors' decisions. It's yours to tread anew, but be wary what you seek may be a history yet untold." Fredegund's brow knitted as she absorbed his words. "What if the pieces don't fit? What if we discover something too painful to bear?" "Pain, my dear, is not always a foe. Sometimes, it is a companion on the way to healing. Each discovery can be the balm that takes the sting out, provided one dares to hold it up to the light." His gaze softened, flickering like the flame of the candles twinkling at the corners of the dim room. I felt the weight of his proposition settle between us, a combination of fear and intrigue. Can we trust that the truths we find will be the keys to our liberation? A chorus of emotions swelled within me: frustration, hope, apprehension. The man's sneer lurked at the fringes of my thoughts, a spectre reminding me of the sinister power at play. With Cedric's pouch in hand, I felt the power of possibility, but that very power could just as easily unravel everything, and then, the darkness shifted, the man laughing once more from the fringes, as if he were feeding off our uncertainty. "You truly believe you can navigate the labyrinth that is your bloodline and remain unscathed? Go ahead, children. Dive into the depths of your forebears. But know this, there are some truths best left buried." His words sliced through the atmosphere, causing an involuntary shiver to travel down my spine. Unfurling before us was a tapestry of secrets, and at its center lay my mother, my father, and Fredegund's father, all with their entanglements woven tightly into ours. The tension was a living thing, alive with grudges, heartbreak, and those unspoken words that lingered in our family narratives like ghosts that in a wild rush of emotion, I turned to Fredegund. "If we truly want to change our fate, we have to confront this head-on. Will you face it with me?" Her eyes shone with an almost stubborn defiance. "Together. We'll write our own story from the ashes of theirs." Just as I was about to nod in agreement, a sharp intake of breath pierced the moment. I glanced back at Cedric, a look of surprise locked upon his features, as if something unseen had just unfurled behind us. "What's happening?" I demanded, foolishly hoping he held the answers that it appears, he murmured, eyes wide with concern, "that the story you seek may already have spilled forth. The truth may well unravel before you in a way you least expect." With a sudden violent flash, a figure burst through the remaining haze, stepping forth from the shadows as if summoned to fulfill a long-forsaken prophecy. My heart tripped in my chest as recognition dawned, a blaze of realization crashing like thunder. "Fredegund, it's her," I stammered, stepping back in disbelief, the air thick with implications too heavy to ignore. The figure emerging was not a mere ghost but rather a reflection of everything we'd tried to forget. "Mother?" Fredegund's voice broke, a tremor breaking the steadfast resolve she had clung to moments before. "No," the apparition replied, her tone full of weariness but laced with an unmistakable warmth. "Not just hers. Yours too." Silence enveloped us, a chasm of astonishment filling the air. The history that loomed ahead bore its weight on our shoulders, and I sensed the encroaching shadows shifting to accommodate the raw truths now spilling forth. "What do you mean?" Fredegund barely uttered, disbelief entwined with confusion, but the figure met our eyes with a knowing, sorrowful gaze that seemed drawn from a depth of shared pain, as if she were both mother and daughter wrapped in oni mirror reflecting a truth long denied. "The choices of your fathers and mothers are not the chains binding you, they are but the stories leading you here. You must find the courage to rewrite them." As the shadows swirled with renewed ferocity, I felt the weight of the world upon us, the darkness threatening to swallow every chance we had left at freedom. But behind every shadow surged the echo of possibility. The room pulsed with tension as I reached out towards Fredegund, my mind racing with revelations yet to be unraveled. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. Let's bring forth the light, but just as those words left my lips, the darkness screeched, and a sudden coldness filled the air, wrapping around us tightly. A final, chilling laugh resonated through the room, shattering the moment of hesitation as I turned to face the menacing figure once more, a dreaded realization creeping into my heart. Our discovery had only just begun, and with it, the undeniable chance that some truths were more devastating than I had ever imagined. I braced myself for the truths that would come, knowing that the storm we had once only sensed was now surging, unrelenting, a gale ready to lay bare the very roots of our existence, and perhaps with it the scandal that would forever shift the path of our intertwined fates. The air hung heavy with the silence of disbelief as Fredegund stared at the figure that had just materialized from the shadows, her mother, yet not entirely hers. I could feel the tumultuous emotions swirling in Fredegund's chest, echoing in the depths of my own heart. Confusion, grief, and a hint of hope fought for dominance within us. The warmth that radiated from the apparition felt both comforting and alien in the oppressive gloom. "Are you really here?" Fredegund finally broke the silence, her voice trembling, straddling the line between reality and the surreal. "Did you come to tell me why you left?" The ethereal figure glimpsed at the corners of the room, where long-buried memories seemed to dance like spectral lights. "I came to unravel the strings you've been too afraid to tug. Your story is tangled in our past, sewn with threads of love, allegiance, but also of betrayal." Her voice tremored softly, each syllable weighted as if she bore not only her own grief but that of generations. "Betrayal?" I echoed, stepping closer to Fredegund and glancing at Cedric, whose ancient face bore an expression more somber than I had ever seen. "What do you mean?" With a sigh that seemed to carry centuries of heartache, the apparition turned back to us. "Your forebears knew secrets too dark to share. I left to protect you, to spare you a burden I thought you'd never have to carry. But secrets do not stay buried forever. They grow, they bend, and they seek the light." As she spoke, I felt a tightening in my chest, an instinctive warning that the darkness teasing at the edges of our gathered truths was growing stronger. "What kind of secrets?" I managed to ask, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "What are we dealing with? Decisions made in desperation, alliances forged in shadows, ones that clasped our families together." The apparition's eyes shimmered with deep sorrow. "A vow made generations ago has kept these ties hidden. But bonds like ours are soothed by love yet mangled by fear. You must know your history to free yourself from it." Fredegund stepped forward, a mixture of determination and dread etched across her features. "Then tell us. Tell us how we can change this story. How can we stop whatever darkness has festered?" The figure's expression softened. "Change begins with understanding. You must descend into the depths of your family's past. Only there can you confront the secrets that threaten to foreclose your legacy." My pulse quickened. "But how? How do we face these ghosts, in the place where all things began, the old estate, long thought abandoned? There lie the remnants of answers. Relics that may reveal what was forgotten. You'll find both the keys and the chains there." A shiver ran through me, not just of fear but of an unexpected twist of excitement. The old estate loomed in my mind, its silent walls holding faded memories and unwhispered truths. What if we go there and find nothing? What if it shatters us? The apparition approached Fredegund, reaching out as if to touch her face but lingering just shy of contact. "The heart's yearning can be a potent guide. Be brave, my child. Seek, and you shall unearth not just anguish, but also love and unexpected luminosity in the darkness." The last word hung heavy like a bell tolling for a long-forgotten past. In that instant, I finally grasped the enormity of the journey before us. We stood at the precipice of discovery, yet with each passing moment, the weight of uncertainty pressed down like a cold lead blanket. Just as I turned to share this revelation with Fredegund, a rumble of thunder echoed through the air, shaking the very ground beneath us. The lights flickered ominously, and in the shadows, the figure of the man, one who had tormented us with laughter, seemed to manifest once more, his voice curling around us like smoke. "Ah, the naive explorers of lost truths. But beware, children, for the past is a tempest that consumes the unprepared. Are you ready to face what you shall unearth?" I felt a bolt of icy fear shooting through my body, but mixed with it came a fierce whisper of hope that surged through the darkness like a beacon. We were already tied to the past. We had to unearth it to rewrite our future. Fredegund gripped my arm, her fingers squeezing with a strength that belied her fears. Together, she affirmed, her voice steadied by a new resolution. The figure made a gesture to the expanding shadows. Then go. Unravel the scandal that binds you. But know this, not all shadows are your enemies, some long to shield you from the truths you cannot bear. Before I could register the weight of those words, the lights flickered back to normal, and the room around us was suddenly still. Yet the tension lingered, thick like fog, the weight of unspoken words pressing against our hearts. As we stumbled back through the doorway, ready to confront the dilapidated remnants of history at the estate, something sharp caught my eye, a fleeting shadow darting past the edge of my vision as if whispering secrets of its own. I froze mid-step, excitement mingled with dread. Did you see that? I barely breathed. Fredegund narrowed her eyes. What? But nothing followed. The darkness had reclaimed its domain, leaving us in an uncertain silence that echoed louder than the statue's laughter. The secret of the old estate seemed to be watching back, waiting for its time to reveal itself. And as we stepped outside, I felt it lurking a presence that would not remain hidden for long, the knowledge that every revelation we sought had a price that we weren't yet prepared to pay. As we approached the old estate, I felt a tremor of anticipation alongside palpable dread. The structure loomed before us, a relic of the past wrapped in overgrown vines and memories that seemed to whisper through the wind. I stole a glance at Fredegund, her features resolute yet shadowed by uncertainty, and I took her hand, anchoring her to this moment. The door creaked open, revealing a dark hallway echoing with the silence of forgotten secrets. Every instinct told me we were about to unearth truths that had festered beneath the surface for far too long. With each footstep, the floorboards creaked, breaking the stillness like shattered glass. I felt the weight of history pressing in around us, the air thick like an embrace from ghosts unwilling to release their hold. As we stepped further inside, I caught a glimpse of shadowy figures flickering at the edges of my vision, a feeling that we were not truly alone here. The opposite wall was lined with portraits, faces of ancestors whose eyes bore witness to the stories we were about to uncover. They felt like guardians, yet their gaze was heavy with judgment. I hesitated, caught between curiosity and trepidation, but Fredegund squeezed my hand, a silent reminder that we were in this together. Let's find the truth, I whispered, determination flooding my veins. That we walked deeper into the estate, and as I examined each room, memories seemed to flood back, smells of old wood, hints of lavender long since faded. It was unsettling yet nostalgic. Suddenly, in a dimly lit corner, a glint of silver caught my eye, an ornate box, covered with dust but radiating a strange energy. I reached for it hesitantly, lifting the delicate lid. Inside were letters, rendered yellow with age, and as I unfolded one, the words began to swim across my mind, a confession penned in trembling script. My heart raced. The gravity of the moment sank in as I read, each line revealing the tangled history between our families. Then I heard Fredegund's gasp nearby. Look! She stood by a large wooden armoire, the door slightly ajar. I joined her, and together, we pulled it open to unveil a hidden compartment filled with more letters, photographs, and items representing lives intertwined in ways we had never imagined. Among them, a silver locket caught my eye. Is that? Fredegund murmured, reaching for it. It is, I breathed, remembering the locket her mother used to wear. But how did it end up here? Just as she reached out to take it, the shadows around us seemed to shift, whispering their silent tales, and I could almost hear the echoes of laughter intertwined with unshed tears. This is how we break the cycle, I encouraged, the urgency in my voice rising like the swell of a storm. We reclaim their stories, not let them dictate ours. We sifted through the letters together, piecing together the narrative, revealing secrets long buried, the debts owed and promises made in desperation. The labyrinth of choices our parents had faced began to unfurl before us, revealing a tangled web of love and sacrifice twisted alongside betrayal. And yet, with each discovery, I felt a fracture deep within, a realization dawning that these dark secrets were not just theirs, they were parts of us too. A swell of guilt surged as I opened another enveloped letter, its bold handwriting unmistakable. My heart dropped as I recognized my father's name. A confession poured from the page about choices made to shelter me from the truth. He had hidden something monumental from men, not just my identity, but the very fabric of my existence. Fredegund, I stammered, my thoughts racing. It connects to me, to my family. I had no idea. Her eyes widened, and I saw the dawning horror mirrored in them. You were tied to this history more than we knew. This isn't just your parents' burden anymore. A mix of fear and poignancy enveloped us. It threatened to swallow us whole, yet spurred an invigorating fire within. In that moment, I grasped the weight of our legacy, not just the burden, but the potential to create something new. We can choose differently. The realization rolled deep within me, and I could feel the solidarity of our hearts, beating in sync as we held tight to that locket, symbolizing our choice to move forward. Outside, thunder rumbled ominously, but the storm was taking a different shape now, one of empowerment rather than despair. Suddenly, knowing the past seems less daunting, Fredegund said softly, a light flickering in her eyes. Together, we have the power to reshape our narrative. Before I could respond, ominous footsteps sounded behind us, raining the air with dread. I turned, heart hammering in my chest as the man who had haunted us reappeared, his sneer cutting through the essence of our shared resolve. Ah, what a lovely little scavenger hunt, he taunted, relishing our discovery with malicious delight. Thinking you've risen above the sins of your fathers? How adorable that I stepped protectively in front of Fredegund. We won't be intimidated by you any longer. We have found the truth. The man chuckled, the sound devoid of humanity. Truth? Children, it's all a game of perception. This is merely a prelude. With a flick of his wrist, the air crackled, shadows spiraling as he moved closer. The stories that bind you, who you are, what you must pay, they cannot change. A red flag shot through me, everything I had learned crashing against the reality that stood before us. He thrived in this darkness, wrapped in the arrogance of unfounded power. You don't control us, I shot back, every ounce of my defiance pouring out. This ends now. In that electrifying moment, the locket glimmered against Fredegund's chest, a beacon of resistance. We've taken control of our story. Your influence ends here. He lunged toward us, shadows swirling like tendrils of smoke, but as he reached for us, light erupted from the locket, a burst of brilliant warmth that filled the room. No. This cannot be. He howled, the shadows recoiling as the light intensified. The surge of illumination felt alive, in response to our collective courage. We stood shoulder to shoulder, finding strength in our unity, and as the shadows dissipated, the room brightened, casting away remnants of fear and anguish. Suddenly, we felt a shift, an almost tangible reprieve as the man staggered back, his form flickering in the dazzling light. You think you can escape the consequences? He snarled, yet even his voice trembled, uncertainty flickering within. Fredegund took a step forward, emboldened by an unexpected resolve. We've made our choice to rise above the debts of the past. You may surround us with intimidation, but our courage and love are stronger. In that defining moment, something shifted within our very essence, a realization dawning that love, forged from truth and vulnerability, could transcend even the darkest of legacies. For every whisper of despair, we each released a beam of light, those who came before us, those we cherished, and those who had yet to arrive. As the man's form began to dissipate before us, losing his hold, we stepped fully into the warmth, illuminated not just by the locket but by our shared resolve to rewrite a narrative written in shadows back to one woven in light. And as the final remnants of darkness collapsed and mixed with the warm glow surrounding us, the estate's walls seemed to sigh in relief. In that moment, I turned to Fredegund, her eyes shining with newfound hope, and I knew we had crossed a threshold not just for ourselves, but for every generation whose story had been lost among the weight of unspoken words. Today, we don't just confront our past, we reclaim our future, I whispered, a swell of love flooding my heart as our hands remained entwined. As light danced around us, I felt resurgence, not merely from voicing the secrets of our families, but from forging a path toward a possible tomorrow. In that moment, we weren't reduced to the shadows we'd walked through, we were alive with the power of love and hope. And while there would be challenges ahead, I knew with every fiber of my being that we were ready, buoyed by courage and brimming with light, two hearts intertwined, resilient against whatever storm dared to come. Finally, as the twilight gave way to dawn, leaving a blush of pink and gold on the horizon, I turned back to the estate. "Let's open the doors wide," I said, a smile emerging on my lips. "It is time for the world to see the truth." Together, we stepped forward, leaving behind the weight of old shadows, ready to share our journey and embrace the world with open hearts. For in truth lies both pain and beauty, and it was time to rewrite our family's story, one of a love that transcends even the darkest of scandals. That we chose our destiny, and in doing so, we would shine a beacon for all those lost to the shadows, forever urging them to seek the light.